So let's talk a little bit about some major breaking news out of Russia, Ukraine. Now, so far we have had peace deals or attempts to allow Trump and the two sides to come together, as you know from the world news from the last month. But now, over the last week, things have just escalated. And I am quite surprised that people are not waking up to something more sinister in terms of escalating World War III type of rhetoric, because what just happened apparently, and again, I'm going to talk about multiple layers here. And if you know how I interpret news, or I teach people how to interpret news, you don't just take things at face value. There are multiple things that happen behind the scenes, and there are certain things that happen intentionally so that it gives a message to a certain audience. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take it as is with respect to the countries that consume that information. So Zelensky saying something or doing something doesn't necessarily equate to Putin and the reactions and him doing something, and vice versa. So I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. But first, let's talk about what happened essentially. Apparently, a Russian commander and just many other sources coming out of the Kremlin claimed that Putin's helicopter was caught up in a Ukrainian drone attack during a Kursk visit. Now, I'll spare you the depths of the news, but basically just a lot of quote unquote, unprecedented attack with military drones. 46 were apparently destroyed in Russian air defenses, and just many other details. And shortly after, this is on May 25th, Russia hits Ukraine with the largest drone and missile attack of the war so far. So that's a huge development from the aggression type of scenario. Now, Trump has responded to this, and I'm just going to read what he has said, but basically he has echoed the same sentiment in a video interview on the tarmac somewhere, where he said that Putin has gone absolutely crazy. And so here he says the same thing. I've always had a very good relationship with Vladimir Putin of Russia, but something has happened to him. Now, pay attention to that. Something has happened to him. He has gone absolutely crazy. He is needlessly killing a lot of people. And I'm not just talking about soldiers. Missiles and drones are being shot into cities with capital C in Ukraine for no reason whatsoever. I've always said that he wants all of Ukraine, not just a piece of it. Maybe that's proving to be right, but if he does, it will lead to the downfall of Russia. Likewise, President Zelensky is doing his country no favors by talking the way he does. Everything out of his mouth causes problems. I don't like it, and it better stop. This is a war that would never have started if I were president. This is Zelensky's, Putin's, and Biden's war, not Trump's. I'm only helping to put out the big and ugly fires that have been started through gross incompetence and hatred. So here, there's a lot of, and again, probably people have decoded this, but there's certain things that he's doing, right? Again, capitalizations, other sort of words, wordplay, things are out of it. So he's saying something, some secret message. If you want to talk about Q and all this stuff, he's doing something here. But what he's doing, he's saying that he's crazy. It's a little bit of a sharp turn to what he said before. And so it makes you wonder, right? What is he doing that warrants this? And is there something else behind it? Now, the other thing to look at here is that General Flynn is reporting or responding to something that this guy, Alex Jones, and people recognize him for saying and doing certain things and reporting, but he essentially is tagging Trump, DNI Gabbard, and Secretary of Defense Hegseth. And so, again, there is this idea of a continuity of government. I've talked about this before, continuity of government operation with key government officials being moved to secure locations outside Moscow. This is a sign of escalation. Other indicators the USIC should be looking for are movement of any strategic rocket or bomber forces. Again, you can take this with a grain of salt, but he's saying these words that have had meaning, right? If you follow and listen to what I've talked about before, with regards to the continuity of government operations during Biden's time, where he was not really, in some sense, the president. And here he's talking about this escalation and along the Kharkov border, amassing troops, 50,000 Russian troops. This aligns with reports from Sky News, which confirmed the strategic positioning of Russian forces following their push from the Kursk region, suggesting a calculated move to exert pressure on Ukrainian leadership. The point here is that certain people are saying certain things, and we don't know the full story, to be honest. We don't know if, all of these drones and the attacks and all that, who's escalated what, who's done what kind of false flags there are, who's actually saying the truth, who's baiting somebody else to do certain things, to cease fire, to do other stuff. But one thing I believe that's happening is that as peace comes, one thing that Trump has to do is that he has to distance himself from Putin and Zelensky. So this is a good opportunity for him to create certain optics where Zelensky is not doing what Trump wants. And also Putin is not related to Trump in that he is his puppet in a sense, right? The media is going to paint Trump and Putin in a certain way, but if he does this and he completely says, hey, he's gone crazy, I don't know what has happened to him, and all of this other rhetoric, it just goes to show that from an optics point of view, he's doing this intentionally. So there's that aspect. But I also think simultaneously, Putin is trying to root out something. So I think that there is some kind of internal deep state or traitors within the Russian government, especially because who knew about this attack? If there was a helicopter attack and this is all real, who knew about this unless something else is happening as an internal battle within the military or certain bad actors in the Russian deep state? And so he might be doing this intentionally to root out certain people. The same thing happened with Trump, right? He wanted to root out the deep state during the Biden presidency, quote unquote. And so all of this might be, in some sense, a repeat to a 2.0 to kind of see who's playing double agent, who's, actually true to the Russians or not, and all of these other things. And so again, there is a multifaceted. My point here is that I'm not claiming to know exactly what's going on, but what you've got to understand from interpreting news is that there's something else behind the scenes, and it may be done intentionally by the government, by the leaders, to root out and to have a different target audience, as opposed to the original person, the face value interpretation of something to the news, to the general population, to the other country, whatever it is, because there's a whole theater, a whole movie at play. There's a whole show that's being done, and there's a different outcome. It's psyops. It's fifth gen warfare. And so all of this has to be done in calculation to do something for a greater purpose or a cause. So one of the things I've said before, and I'll say it again, is that the deep state is using Ukraine for something, and we don't know fully what it is. I can have some speculation, but for sure, some kind of bioweaponry development, deep state money laundering, all that stuff is being done, and certain people are being captured to do the work of Satan in some sense. And it reminded me of this video that Tucker Carlson had mentioned about who they're really fighting. So let's just quickly listen to this.
From our perspective over here, the Ukrainian government is not just at war with Russia, but also with Christianity. The Ukrainian government has banned the largest Christian denomination in Ukraine and has embraced transgenderism and other explicitly anti-Christian forms of expression. Are you aware of that? Are the Russians aware of that? Is there a religious component? Just because their hostility to Christianity is so obvious, I wonder if you notice it.
I always ask the soldiers on the front line what they're doing there. Why are they fighting? What are they fighting for? And often an answer they give is they're fighting Satan because they view the religious atmosphere so different, as you point out, in Ukraine than the traditional Russian society.
So remember, if you do a little bit more research and you actually see certain videos and you go deeper than what the media says and what you think you see at the surface value, at the surface level, then there's going to be much more that you will be awakened to understand what's really going on. And so again, as I've said before, in summary, Trump, Putin, many others, they're working together to dismantle the deep state and this global order. And it can't just be said because, again, there's a simultaneous operation for which there are real evils, real people that are fighting each other. If you just say it to the people and try to explain it, you're going to remove the element of surprise. You're going to remove the element that you have when you, what does Sun Tzu say? You appear weak when you are strong. And so a lot of these things, you have to understand that there is a bigger picture. There's something else. And we're trying to understand and be awakened to that in this season. And so just wanted to give you guys this 2 cents. Let me know what you guys think. More is to come. And again, we're thankful that World War III didn't just come out of nowhere. But again, this is all part of the show in some sense as we wrap up this sort of end chapter going into the credits. And so, again, it's a good time. I always say God is in control. He has everything. But don't be concerned, but also try to pray and to really desire knowledge, desire the truth, and it will get you very far in this time. So love you guys. Talk to you guys very soon. If you guys want to support me, again, I have a link down below for Give, Send, Go. I also have alternative forms of methods for financial support down in the links below. I really need you guys to support. We're trying to reach a goal to do certain things here as I am getting settled and situated for different opportunities that God has for me here in Korea. And so please pray for us. Also, elections are coming up. Probably talk a little bit about that at some point for Korea, but it's a big turning point or a big fork in the road in a sense for this country. So love you guys. Talk to you guys very soon.